All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Hebrew News Network. And we're going to get into some of our stories this evening. Hope everyone is having a great week. Unfortunately for us, we're having a great week as well. And I don't mean to say unfortunately in a bad way. It's just that we have to be the ones to bring the news as to what's going on. And hopefully it can help you all be able to navigate throughout life as we prepare for the return of the Lord. So let me just adjust my lighting here. All right. So first on the agenda, we're going to share an article pertaining to what's going on with the dollar. So as most of you all know that America is the reserve currency for the whole world at this particular time, and it'll be that way. Um, well, it's been that way for substantial amount of time, and um, it won't be that way too much longer, as a matter of fact. But that's mainly what the world has been accustomed to. Has been accustomed to the dollar being at the forefront, and so now we're starting to see some things where the dollar is, somewhat taking a back seat. And here's an article pertaining to that. So let me just back up a little bit here. So as you can see here, the perfect storm, dollar collapse, silver shock, and Trump's final gamble with Iran. And I just want to make sure everyone can hear me good in the chat. If you can, give me a thumbs up. If you can't, then I will know going forward to make adjustments here. All right, so Nate will be in shortly as well. So once again, as you can see from the title, it says the perfect storm, dollar collapse, silver shock, and Trump's final gamble with Iran. And we'll look into that as well. I did wake up this morning and see, I heard something on the, just dealing with silver and gold. I think I mentioned a few episodes, I think around the first or second episode. Good evening, Sister Chris and Brother Kevin and Sister Debbie. I saw I purchased silver probably about, 2026, almost 20 years ago. I purchased silver at about the lowest amount I got it at. I think it might have been $11. So today when I woke up, an ounce, and the highest I got it back in that time was about $22 per ounce back in the day. So I bought 10 ounces. And that's when, most of I was kind of going through my New World Order conspiracy type thing at that time in 2008. And so I bought about 10 ounces around that time, anywhere from $11 to $21. I don't think I went higher than, okay, well, put it this way. I'll say I didn't go higher than $25 on an ounce of silver. So the day I woke up, silver was at $118 per ounce. Now, keep in mind, back in the day when I purchased the silver, I really didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that by me being so scared that I needed to, purchase something, as if it was going to save me, you know what I'm saying? But it might have seemed strange and weird at the time. But, like I say, the ounce of silver is at $118 per ounce. And I paid anywhere from $10 to $25 an ounce back in 2008. But let's see what's going on with the dollar. The unraveling, a world of shattering norms. The year is 2026, and the once unassailable pillars of American global power are crumbling in plain sight. The U.S. dollar, the lifeblood of the global financial system, is hemorrhaging value at a pace not seen in over half a century. The U.S. dollar index has collapsed more than 10% in just 12 months, a flashing red alert for anyone paying attention to the signals of systemic failure. This is not a simple devaluation. It is a double losing scenario where the dollar is losing ground against other fiat currencies. which are themselves imploding against the only true measures of value, honest money like gold and silver. So I did point out before that the reason why you would start to see, or the reason why gold and silver, the prices go up. Now, back in the day when I purchased the silver, gold was at $900 an ounce, and now it's at almost $5,000 an ounce. But the reason why these hard assets will gain value like this is because what happens is people start to pull out of the dollar, in this case, the world reserve currency. They'll start to pull out and start to invest in hard assets, tangible assets. Gold and silver, in this case, is a tangible asset, something you can touch, in other words. But at the same time, people will try to move into those type of positions when they can kind of see, things are kind of going down the drain. And that's what's happening here. The architect of this monetary debacle is the US government itself, which has mastered the art of destruction by weaponizing the dollar through endless money printing and sanctions warfare. And that's what you kind of hear going on with all the different sanctions that Trump has been putting out on people. And then printing money like like nothing going north. So eventually what that'll do is going to cause the dollar bill to drop. So just something that you all need to pay attention to. Let's move down on this paragraph here. Let's see here. Well, I'll finish it. As economists, Kenneth Rogoff warned at the World Economic Forum, the U.S. economy is in for a wild ride under Trump's second term, with the dollar facing a slew of challenges from tariffs and fiscal recklessness. This currency crisis coincides with extreme, unprecedented volatility in precious metals, signaling a fundamental market seizure and the end of the post-war financial stability that was always a facade built on debt. And that's what the dollar has really been. It's really been a facade because, people think that you can keep printing money like this and it won't be no repercussions. But now you have what's really starting to take place is the dollar bill is, starting to pull back, and it's making way for others to come on up. And it has to happen, which is why we point out time after time after time, you have little different signals that you pay attention to kind of show you where we are in society. So the simple fact that the dollar is starting to go down, and it won't be a fast crash, but this is just enough time for you to kind of biblically pay attention to what's coming next. Like I said last week, once America starts to pull back, then you have to have, or there will be another player that will move into their position. And in this case here, Rome is what's going to take its place. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, is leading a decisive rebellion against this decaying dollar hegemony, forging a new financial order anchored in gold-backed trade systems. So this is why you're going to start to see the silver and gold go up. I don't know if anybody here pays attention to it, but I'm sure somebody has probably invested in gold and silver. I'm sure I'm not the only one. And the only reason I did silver because I couldn't afford gold. You know what I'm saying? Like $900 compared to $9. Look, that's a big difference. So even a poor man could afford that. But if you pay attention to these different things like that, you'll just kind of be able to see and be abreast on, how the world is getting ready to come to an end. In other words, we try, society here in America tries to hold it up, tries to, pump their fist about American stuff like that. And it was once a great country, but like I have said, and I always continue to say that once the morality goes inside of a country, then the next thing to go is everything else. Once you get all the morality out the way, the respect, the honor, once that's gone, then, it's only down from there. In this case right here, once, America, for the most part, got to the point where they didn't want to give honor to God. Not to say that they was giving honor to the real God in the first place, but when you have a concerted effort to move the commandments out of school, take prayer out of school and stuff like that, it just opens the door for other things to come on in. So at least we were able to have some type of righteousness, not the full righteousness that most of us are aware of that watches this channel, but we had something as opposed to nothing, and that's where we are now. Everything is going out the window, so it's only normal that this will have to take a back seat. America will have to fall. So right here it says their movement is a direct response to decades of U.S. corruption and the weaponization of its currency, a process that has now reached its terminal phase. As one analyst starkly put it, the dollar's reign is crumbling under the weight of its own corruption. The world is watching the final act of a fiat currency experiment that has enriched a predatory elite while enslaving the population with debt. Yeah, and that's mainly what's happening, you know, and that's what we want to do here at Hebrew News Network, just to kind of, put it out there, kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together so you don't be caught off guard. A lot of people just moving about, having a good time in life, and which is fine. You want to have a good time, but just have some understanding as to what's occurring. And we're gonna move off of this article after I read this. In late January 2026, the precious metals market delivered a warning shot heard around the world. Within a violent 24-hour period, silver experienced a historic spike and crash, swinging from approximately $107 to $117 before plunging back to around $103 in U.S. markets, a level of volatility unseen since the Hunt brothers era of the 1980s. This was not normal trading. It was a sound of a market breaking. Overnight, the chaos spread globally. Asian markets saw prices surge again, with Shanghai trading hitting $124, a clear indicator of a fundamental breakdown in global price discovery and a frantic scramble for physical metal. The disconnection between paper futures and physical reality has never been starker. Dealers are refusing to sell at spot prices, offering steep premiums instead, while refiners report backlogs stretching for months. So in other words, people are trying to get a hold of silver, and even the dealers that sell it, they can't sell it at, the spot price because there's so many people trying to get it. So they have to increase the price, because it's supply and demand, in other words. So in this case right here, you have a lot of demand for it with a very little supply. So it's like people are trying to, run into the hills for safety, in a sense. But enough of that. Let's move down to Trump's final war, and we're going to move on to the what's going on with this right here as far as Iran is concerned. Let's see here. Trump's final war, the attack on Iran. And the point of no return. The financial chaos is inextricably linked to a perilous geopolitical brinkmanship. President Donald Trump, having won the 2024 election and now commanding a Republican-controlled Congress, appears poised to order a devastating strike on Iran. This push is fueled by advisors like Senator Lindsey Graham and aligned with the objectives of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who seeks a final confrontation with the Islamic Republic. The U.S. has gathered more firepower in the Middle East than at any point since Operation Desert Storm, a clear signal of intent. The catalyst is being manufactured from within. Protests ignited by a collapsing Iranian rial and soaring prices have spread across Iran, turning deadly. Trump has framed potential U.S. intervention in explicitly humanitarian terms, warning Tehran against killing protesters and declaring help is on its way to Iranian descendants. See, one thing that the Gentile does, the Gentile will cause trouble. It's called problem, reaction, solution, and they will cause trouble and make it seem as if they didn't do nothing wrong, and then they want to come in and act as if they're the hero when actually, when actually they're the one that's behind it. Iran, as you know, doesn't bother anybody. You know, they don't bother nobody. They mind their own business. But at the same time, what's happening here is America is trying to go to war with them, and that right there is for the most part somewhat egged on by Israel or Esau, our brother. Excuse me, I forgot my water. All right, so right here, 12 here. However, analysts warn this is a hybrid warfare strategy, a combination of crushing economic sanctions, targeted military strikes, cyber warfare, stoking unrest, and unrelenting misinformation campaigns designed to destabilize the regime. The goal is not reform, but regime change, and that's really how it usually goes. For example, they wanted Osama bin Laden out of office over in Saudi Arabia. They got rid of him, right? It's almost like what they'll do is they'll put up their minions and stuff, and then when they put them up, as long as everything is going the way that America wants it to go, then they're fine with it. But when you start to go against what it is they tell you to do, they get you out of there. And that's one thing we have to understand, that the Gentiles are in power. They are in power, and but if you don't know no better, it just kind of seems like, um, you know, poor citizens of Iran, they're being taken advantage of, and that's not really the case. But needless to say, what's going on here is they're trying to start a war with Iran. Excuse me. Even though that won't be good at the end of the day, because Iran has an ally, several allies, which we know as the Lord's army, taking it all the way to Russia, China, all of these now countries that are making up uh, BRICS, starting with Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And then you had other countries that have also joined. So that's not a good move. Let's see here. Where we at? Okay, let me bring Nate in, y'all. All right, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, what's up, man?
What's up? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well.
All right.
Do you have glasses on?
Yeah, these are blue light glasses
Oh,
from my
okay.
computer.
Okay, that's what's up, man. You look very intelligent.
Hold on, I'm trying to turn this up a little bit.
Okay. All right, so I was reading on let's see, I was reading on this particular one here. Okay, let's see here. This will be a catastrophic miscalculation. Iran is not a weak adversary. It is a nation of 90 million fiercely loyal Persians. Oh, see that, guys? Persians. Remember how we talk about church? We talk about the Medes and the Persians, right? Well, here you go. And they're not nothing to be taken lightly. Like it says here, it is a nation of 90 million fiercely loyal Persians with a formidable military. It has promised a total response to any attack, threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, a 30-mile wide artery carrying a third of the world's seaborne oil, destroy regional U.S. bases, target the U.S. Navy, and unleash advanced ballistic missiles, some potentially nuclear tipped. The war would be based on an overconfidence fed by lying advisors who parrot the myth of U.S. military invincibility, a dangerous fantasy that could trigger a global catastrophe. So that's something we definitely have to pay attention to as well. So, Nate, what's your take on that? Wonder what happened. I guess he'll come back in a sec. All right, so what we'll do is let's move over to another article here. So we looked at this one. Let's go see here. And that's what this is about, to simply bring news. So here's another article. Let me see here. Okay. Give me 1 second, everyone. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so Nate said his father-in-law got stranded, so I think he might have to go take care of that. So I'll have to hold it down the rest of this evening. Is everything okay?
Hold on
It-
1 second.
Okay. All right, so this right here comes from news.antiwar.com. U.S. holding war games across the Middle East. The military drills come as the U.S. has engaged in a major military buildup, and Trump is threatening to attack Iran. U.S. troops across the Middle East are engaging in war games to demonstrate their readiness. The U.S. has engaged in a significant military buildup in the region, and President Donald Trump is considering a range of options to carry out regime change in Iran. Ninth Air Force will be conducting a multi-day readiness exercise to demonstrate the ability to deploy, disperse, and sustain combat air power across the Central Command area of responsibility. A statement from CENTCOM on Monday explained. This exercise is designed to enhance asset and personal dispersal capability, strengthen regional partnerships, and prepare for flexible response execution throughout CENTCOM. The expansive war games come amid significant tensions with Iran. Trump is threatening to topple the government in Tehran. You know, it's so hard reading these. Trump is threatening to topple the government in Tehran. The president is considering a range of options, including an oil blockade and strikes targeting high level officials in the Islamic Republic. Iran has said it does not seek conflict and is willing to engage in talks with the U.S. under respectful conditions. The Islamic Republic has threatened to retaliate against U.S. bases in the Middle East and Israel in response to any attack. So it's just provocation, and that's the time we live in where, Matthew 24 talks about wars and rumors of wars, but as you can see here, that's something that we constantly keep running into. Okay, let's see here. What's your take on that, Nate? You have anything?
Well, I was just gonna ask what exactly what exactly we're talking about.
Say it again. It went out.
Can you hear me fine?
I hear you just fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking what the topic was.
We're reading over this article. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see the article on the screen.
Okay, right there. You see it? Holding war games across the Middle East.
Okay.
So we just went to the first. We looked at the first one from Natural News pertaining to. First, it was referring to how the dollar's collapsing, and then we went off into looking at Iran and stuff like that. The ones that you sent over. So this right here, just kind of backs that up.
Okay.
Just kind of goes a little bit more into it.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, mainly it's just a big it's just a big, like it talks about in Matthew 24, it's gonna be wars and rumors of wars and stuff like that. That's mainly what we have going on, and eventually it's gonna bring us all the way down to the end of the world. Preparing us for the big war. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see here. All right, let's move on to this right here, and we're gonna bring this one up, and I'll let you read this one, Nate.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. You good?
The United States has gathered more firepower in the Middle East than we have ever seen before. It exceeds anything that we witnessed during Operation Desert Storm. It exceeds anything that we witnessed during the war in Afghanistan, and it exceeds anything that we witnessed during the war in Iraq. That doesn't necessarily mean that war is imminent. President Trump could ultimately decide not to pull the trigger, but without a doubt, at this moment, we are exceedingly close to a cataclysmic showdown in the Middle East.
Mm. Okay.
The aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and its 3 accompanying warships have sailed into the Middle East region, providing President Trump additional military firepower if he decides to strike Iran. The USS Abraham Lincoln, which is equipped with Mk-57 Mod 3 Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missile launchers and can carry squadrons of bombers and early warning planes, and its strike group are in the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM area, which encompasses the Middle East region, the command confirmed Monday.
Mm.
The addition of the carrier in the region comes as Trump warned Thursday that the U.S. is sending an armada toward Iran following nationwide protests in the country where thousands of demonstrators have been killed by authorities. Give me 1 second. Let me this up here. Some of us have been carefully tracking the movements of USS Abraham Lincoln in recent days. Once the protests in Iran got really crazy, this carrier was redeployed from the Indian Ocean, and it has a maximum capacity of 90 aircraft.
Wow. So that's how many aircraft be on the ship.
The Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is hauling 5 squadrons of strike fighters with a max capacity of 90 aircraft. These include FA-18 Super Hornets, F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters, and EA-18G Growler radar jammers, along with Osprey tilt rotor transports and MH-60S Seahawk helicopters. Of course, the USS Abraham Lincoln is not traveling alone. It is being accompanied by 3 guided missile destroyers that are fully loaded with Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Lincoln is not alone. It hunts with a wolf pack. It is flanked by 3 guided missile destroyers. Did I just read that?
Nuh-uh. You read the one above that.
Okay. USS Spruance, USS Frank E. Peterson Jr., and USS Michael Murphy. These ships are fully loaded with Tomahawk cruise missiles, ready for immediate launch orders.
Wow.
This battle group is just the latest addition to the growing amount of firepower that the U.S. has accumulated in the region. If the U.S. attacks Iran, the Iranians have already warned that USS Abraham Lincoln will be a primary target. In fact, the Iranians just released a shocking video that simulates what it would look like if an Iranian ballistic missile were to destroy the carrier.
Okay, so right there, let's go look at it. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, let's go see. That's crazy. It's always war, man. Always war.
Yeah, seems like the climate over there
Yeah.
is just getting ready for something.
Yeah, man. Goodness gracious. I mean, goodness, man.
1 week is
Yeah, you right
China,
about that?
1 week is Iran, 1 week is
Right.
Russia.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. All right, let's see this right here.
Iran releases a video showing a simulated strike on a U.S. aircraft carrier. And it comes at a moment when tensions between Washington and Tehran are already at a boiling point. So, what is Iran signaling? And how real is this threat? Let's break it down. On January 25th, Iran unveiled two powerful visual messages, both aimed directly at the United States. First, a massive anti US mural appeared in Tehran's Inqilab Square. The image shows a US aircraft carrier from above, damaged, on fire, with exploding fighter jets and bodies scattered across the deck. The blood trails form the stripes of the American flag, and stamped across it, a warning. If you sow the wind, you will reap the whirlwind. This wasn't random art. Inqilab Square is a well-known propaganda hub, and the timing was precise. The U.S. aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln had just moved closer to the region. But the mural was only half the message. The same day, Iran released a state.
Did y'all see that right there? Like, I'm gonna come back just a little bit. I want y'all to see something. Y'all see that right there? So can you guys kind of picture what John was saying in Revelation when he was like calling the different things that he saw in the vision, like locusts and stuff like that?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like you look at that I don't even know what it is. What is that? A plane or something?
I don't know.
You see it? But I mean that looks. But so just imagine being in the days of John, and the Lord is giving you a vision of, you know, how the world is going to end in war, and you can't really see what it is, but you know the best way you can describe it is like locusts and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Then it talks about, you know, how they ran like it was an army and stuff like that. You know, and smoke went out from the locusts and all that type of stuff. You know, but when you look at this type of stuff, that's how it looks. So we say all the time that he was just describing it the best way he could. You know, so I just want to point that out. I thought that was kind of strange looking at that particular plane right there, or bomber.
Same day, Iran released a state-sponsored video simulating a hypersonic missile strike on that very carrier. The video shows a Fatah missile, Iran's claimed hypersonic weapon, launching, evading defense systems, and slamming into the US ship. Massive explosions, total destruction.
Mm.
Iran claims this missile can travel at Mach 13 to 15 and is undetectable.
Wow.
US military experts strongly dispute that, but the message isn't about technical details, it's about deterrence. So, why now? The answer lies inside Iran. Since late December 2025, Iran has been rocked by nationwide protests. What started as anger over economic collapse, including a free falling currency, quickly turned into political demands for regime change. The government responded with a severe crackdown, a 2-week internet blackout, mass arrests, and a death toll that remains hotly disputed. Activist groups claim more than 5,800 people killed. The government admits to around 3,000. The UN has called the response unprecedented. The United States responded with new sanctions, targeting Iran's oil shipping network, and then a warning from President Donald Trump. On January 22nd, he said any further executions or escalation would trigger military action. Actions, he said, would dwarf previous U.S. strikes. In response,
So just keep that in mind, y'all, because you know, and we're gonna get to the Bible once we get to the end of showing the different articles and stuff. And we're gonna wrap it up with the Word of God. But just want to make sure we point out how, you know, they said the next go around it'd be a whole lot. You know, it'd be worse than it was before. And we know, like last year, they did attack Iran, and they call it a 12-day war, which I never thought would happen in my lifetime. You know, that because everybody has respect for Iran and also Russia as well. But this type of stuff has to happen because, you know, these are the players. These are the main players in the final war. So America is essentially, it's going to move out the way. But I believe that, you know, you have these countries, these extensions of Rome, which are actually behind all of this. What you gonna see after this? I think this is enough on this particular article. But you can look that up on your own. That is called US versus Iran. Let's see here. Let me see if I can get that title. U.S. versus Iran. Iran threatens to sink U.S. warships as Tehran releases chilling video of USS Abraham. So, Nate, from what I can see, though, you know, people may think that Iran is something to sleep on, but it look like they ready, man.
Absolutely. Or something.
Yeah.
Looks like it's they say cooking up over there.
Yeah. You know what, and for those that are watching, you know, if you ever happen to go on a cruise or something like that, you'll see that the world is a whole lot bigger than just our backyard. And what I mean by that is like when you actually go on a cruise or fly across the country, fly across the world, you'll see that it's a huge body of water, a massive body of water. So you can have these wars going on in the ocean and we don't even be affected, you know. But that's how big it is, you know. It's that big, but at the same time, eventually it will end up, you know, hitting land, and they just keep on provoking it. But we're gonna look at this one right here. Let's go see. All right. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is what I wanted to point out here is something that's very important, very very important. And this right here is pertaining to Board of Peace. So I thought this is very important because we don't know how this is going to go. I, for the life of me, don't understand why is Trump heading this thing called the Board of Peace. And not only this is something that they just formed. They just had a meeting last week where you had all the world's. It was called the Davos, right? DAVOS, World Economic Forum last week, right? And you know, mainly when that meeting takes place, you know, from what I hear, I can't prove it. But that's you or me.
What's that?
I think that's you. Did you hear that?
What happened?
It was like a loud noise just came on. Yeah, they're in the background, somebody in there messing up our stuff, right? But so it was at it's called Davos, right? And it's a World Economic Forum where they come together, all the globalist leaders around the world. They all come together and they have this meeting. And from what they say that this particular meeting is to kind of determine how things are going to play out over the next year or so. You know, it's people, the higher ups that, you know, don't even consider us as far as you know, us being at the bottom, right? So in this meeting, this is where Trump had introduced his Board of Peace. Now, this Board of Peace is supposed to be set up for Gaza. So let's just read it, and then we're gonna see who has been invited to partake in this Board of Peace. All right. So the latest on the Board of Peace, what we know about its role, reach, and limits. Nate, you want to read it?
Sure.
All right.
A new international body known as the Board of Peace was formally launched in January, following a November vote by the UN Security Council through Resolution 2803 that welcomed a U.S.-brokered 20-point framework to end the war in Gaza. The initiative gained decisive momentum on January 22nd when President Trump signed the board's charter at the 57th World Economic Forum in Davos. Supporters of the board describe it as a nimble alternative to collective action by the Security Council to facilitate reconstruction planning in Gaza. Skeptics, including close U.S. allies such as France and the United Kingdom, have raised concerns that the initiative could sidestep the existing multilateral system or be used to channel funding away from broadly supported UN organizations.
Mm.
As of now, there's still much we do not know, and we will continue to fine-tune our analysis in the weeks and months ahead. But for now, let's look beyond the headlines to examine the Board of Peace on its own legal and institutional terms.
Okay, so now at this point right here, so we're gonna look at now and see what this Board of Peace is actually about. And I just think this is very important because peace is what's gonna be talked about. I mean, until the Lord come. But if you know any better, you know we're not gonna have any peace. It won't be no peace until the Lord return. Um, and the crazy thing about it, we're gonna read the scripture at the end. The peace is gonna be thrown around so much that even at the end, they're gonna destroy many by peace. And we talking about casting the truth down to the ground. Like, for example, here it is, we preaching the gospel out here, exposing these things like this, and eventually that will become an issue or a problem. It's almost like, well, you guys are against peace. And all we doing is trying to warn people and let you know that the Prince of Peace, the King of Peace, is on the way. And what you have to do is go ahead and repent before he returns, because he's gonna tear this place up, and it's gonna be a lot of dead bodies. A lot of people gonna lose their life when Jesus returns. So we trying to warn you about that and shine a light on this right here. But this Board of Peace here and all these different players and all the different wars that are going on, but that's gonna be a problem or an issue. They're not gonna like that. So we're gonna see that real soon, though, especially as time is picking up. But what is the Board of Peace? All right, you go ahead.
At its core, the board is a selective coalition of willing states organized outside the UN system. While its establishment was endorsed by the UN Security Council specifically as a transitional administration in Gaza for the purpose of coordinating reconstruction efforts, that endorsement does not extend to any operational plans or its governance. Unlike the United Nations, it is not a universal body and does not rely on broad multilateral consensus to act. Instead, it is structured as a standalone organization designed to move quickly among a limited group of aligned participants.
Okay, so in other words, the UN, the United Nations, they voted on it and they was cool with it, right? However, the functionality of this Board of Peace has absolutely nothing to do with the United Nations. So in other words, this Board of Peace is sidestepping the United Nations. Now, the United Nations is something that's been around for a long time. So you would think that the United Nations would be a major player in this, and as far as the governance is concerned. But nah, this is something that's being set up outside of the United Nations, and we're gonna see that some very key is taking place. All right, you can go ahead.
The board's governance model is explicitly centralized. Its charter establishes a chairman-centered structure under which President Trump, as chairman, holds sweeping authority to invite or exclude members, break ties, and approve or veto all board resolutions. Membership is invitation only, with 3-year terms that are renewable at the chairman's discretion rather than through collective decision-making.
Okay, so do y'all see what's going on here? So Trump, he got what? He has about 2 years and some change left in office, right? However, he has created a Board of Peace where he is over the Board of Peace. So when he gets out of the presidency, he'll still have his claws in on the world because he's over the Board of Peace. I mean, that's a smart move. I mean, it's like forget just America. We finna run the whole world. And that's one thing we always like to point out is that when you look around and you see what's going on in the world, especially like you have different you have different groups like the what is it called? Ace. No, it's something where like, say for instance, you speaking against you're speaking against the so-called, Jews or whatever. You're speaking against them. There is a company that kind of deals with that. It starts with the A. It's not the ACLU, I don't think.
If
But
you did what now?
like they form these like they put together a list of hate groups. If you speak against the so-called, you speak against Esau, it's not the ACLU. Um, if you racist and all that type of stuff, it's some type of body that comes and speaks against that. But it'll come to me. But my point is that when you deal with these small groups like Black Lives Matter, Black Panthers, and all these different types of movement, like with Jamal Bryant, you got his, really that's just a movement inside of a black church. You're always talking about. I mean, he's a racist preacher. But I say that because, it's the ACLU. That's what it is, ACLU. But I'm saying that because at the end of the day, these individuals, these little groups and stuff like that, these little things that the NAACP and all that, they ain't got no power. They have no power. You're not going to see Jamal Bryant. You're not going to see Creflo Dollar. You're not going to see TD Jakes. You're not going to see, you're not going to see these individuals that are big in the world among the minorities. You're not going to see them sitting on these type of boards. You know what I'm saying? They just have power a lot. Anti-Defamation League. Yeah, thank you, brother Kevin. They have, it's a name for it. It's a name. They call it something, I can't think. But these individuals not gonna sit on these boards and stuff. They have power to rule in their neighborhoods. They have power to be famous among their own people. Like Martin Luther King, he was famous among his own people. He wasn't allowed to come shake hands with the world leaders and stuff like that. I mean, he might have shook hands with them, but I'm saying like this: when it comes down to putting things in play, putting down policies and things like that. Look, man, the Gentile runs the world. So I say that because you got this president over here in America. He can actually leave office and still run the world. Why? Because the Lord has given the world into the hand of the Gentiles. I just wanted to point that out. They making the rules, like the World Economic Forum at Davos that this meeting took place. It was all these Gentiles there. I ain't see no Negro there at all, not even an African, because these individuals run the world. They call the shots, but the Lord allowed them to do it. And the crazy thing about it is they feel like they gonna be able to keep running the world, But that's gonna end as well. All right, you can go ahead. I just wanted to point that out. I think it's right here.
Where I was at.
Right here. The very top, right there.
Okay. The board's governance model is explicitly centralized. Its charter establishes a chairman-centered structure under which President Trump, as chairman, holds sweeping authority to invite or exclude members, break ties, and approve or veto all board resolutions. Membership is invitation only, with 3-year terms that are renewable at the chairman's discretion rather than through collective decision-making. Financially, the board relies entirely on voluntary contributions. Long-term participation currently requires a reported $1 billion financial commitment, reinforcing its character as a high-threshold opt-in forum rather than an inclusive institution. While its immediate focus is the Gaza ceasefire framework, the charter grants the board authority to expand to address conflicts in which it determines that stability or lawful governance is at risk.
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, read that last sentence.
Of note, the current charter for the board makes no direct mention of Gaza.
Okay, so now this is important because they started this board of peace based on rebuilding Gaza and stuff like that. But if you look at what it says here, it says while its immediate focus is the Gaza ceasefire framework, the charter does what? It grants the board authority to expand to address conflicts in which it determines that stability or lawful governance is at risk. So, in other words, this is what people were complaining about pertaining to this board of peace. I heard people complaining about how it's going to have overreach. It has overreaching powers outside of just Gaza. Like, for example, it's called international for a reason. So I wanted to point that out because, you know, this is how Satan is, man. He come in, sound all smooth and stuff like that. People say, okay, well, yeah, we need a board of peace. Board of peace, that sound real good, and it seemed like it's more so remote or strictly pertaining to Gaza. But like in the article, it says here, it says that of note, the current charter for the board makes no direct mention of Gaza. So what's the purpose of them putting together a board of peace? If it can stretch all over the world, even Vladimir Putin has been invited, and he said he is considered coming in as well. Just go to show you, like, all these individuals are fighting in our face, but behind the scene, you know, they getting along with each other. But you can continue on.
Though the Board of Peace is often discussed in the same breath as the Security Council, the two bodies operate on fundamentally different legal foundations. The Security Council derives its authority from the UN Charter, a treaty ratified by UN member states that explicitly assigns its primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. That mandate was conferred collectively by the international community and cannot be replicated by a separate organization asserting a similar mission. Equally important is the question of binding authority. Under Article 25 of the UN Charter, UN member states are obligated to carry out decisions of the Security Council. The Board of Peace has no comparable mechanism. Its decisions apply only to those states that choose to participate and carry no legal force for non-members.
You see that? So yeah, and don't carry no legal force right now because, you know, they putting it together. And I say that for a reason. I say that for a reason. We're going to get to it next. You can go and finish.
The distinction becomes most consequential when it comes to enforcement. Only the Security Council possesses unique Chapter 7 powers, including the authority to impose sanctions and authorize the use of force in ways that are recognized across jurisdictions.
Wow.
The Board of Peace, by contrast, can coordinate political positions and financial support, but cannot create enforcement regimes that bind the international system as a whole.
Okay, so we'll see. We'll see. Right now they can't, right? So the takeaway, let's see here. So go ahead and read that right there, that last one.
Read on its own terms, the Board of Peace is best understood as a coordination platform, a mechanism for like-minded states to act quickly around a specific political objective. Initially, Gaza, without the procedural constraints of universal multilateralism, in that sense, it could theoretically offer speed and flexibility where the UN system is deliberately cautious.
That's right. So they can make moves like when the UN is United Nations is taking its time, like it says here, they can make moves quick. But if you notice what it says here, it also says, read on its own terms, the Board of Peace is best understood as a coordination platform, a mechanism for like-minded states to act quickly around a specific political objective. Initially, started off with Gaza, but that's not its objective anymore. But they're gonna move together on one accord. Not saying that this is the 10 nations or anything like that, but I just want you to pay attention to the Board of Peace, because that's how the world is going. That's how they're gonna bring in this man of sin, by way of peace. Okay, you can finish that.
What it cannot offer is legal legitimacy.
Legitimacy.
What it cannot offer is legal legitimacy on a global scale. The ability to authorize peacekeeping missions, impose sanctions that endure across changing governments, and anchor ceasefires in recognized international law remains exclusive to the UN Security Council.
For now.
These are not These are not abstract distinctions. They are the reason the UN-backed decisions carry weight beyond the moment and beyond the membership of any single coalition. Bottom line, if the Board of Peace succeeds in its missions, it may ultimately complement multilateralism by functioning as a rapid response forum. As it currently stands, however, it cannot replace the foundations of a system grounded in treaty law and universal membership.
Okay, so one thing we have to remember that the Gentiles run the world, right? They make the rules and they break the rules, okay? They can do what they want to do. I know the article says this, but once you understand the Bible, you know that they do what they want to do because they're in power right now. So like it says, the bottom line, if the Board of Peace succeeds in its mission, it may ultimately complement multilateralism by functioning as a rapid response forum, right? As it currently stands, however, it cannot replace the foundations of a system grounded in treaty law and universal membership. So in other words, it can't take over what the United Nations is for, right? That's what it's saying here. However, let's check something else out. Let's check something else out. We're going to stop sharing this right here, close this out, and let's go look at this. Okay. Well, if you need to go help them, you can go help them out, son.
Okay.
All right, yeah. And then Lord willing, we'll catch up tomorrow and also next week. But yeah, if you got to go help your father-in-law, that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Lord willing, I'll be able to get a full episode in soon.
Oh, that's all good, man. Well, I'll hold it down until then.
Okay, take it easy.
All right, you too, man. Love you, son.
All right, love you too.
All right. All right, so look, y'all. I want to show you guys this right here. All right. As you can see right here, it says Pope evaluating Trump's invitation to join Board of Peace. Vatican's Secretary of State says. So they ain't got the power to do it now, right? But but when you bring in the king, man, when you bring the king in, you can do what you want to do. So let's read this article. OSV News, we've got the church covered. It says Pope Leo, that is 10, 14, 15, 14. Pope Leo 14, I think. I don't know Roman numerals. I can try to remember from back in the day. I think that's 10. Or is that? I don't know. Anyway, Pope Leo is currently evaluating. He's currently evaluating an invitation by U.S. President Donald Trump to join his Board of Peace, an international body chaired by the president to oversee the governance and reconstruction of Gaza, the Vatican Secretary of State said. Speaking with journalists after an event at the Franciscan-run Pontifical University, Antoneum, something like that, in Rome, January 21st, Cardinal Petro Parolin confirmed that Vatican City State was among the countries that received an invitation to join the board. We are looking into it right here. I believe I read that Italy is also considering whether or not to join. Look, this is access to Israel, right? Remember Gaza is they're fighting against those people in Gaza. They're fighting against Israel. You create a board of peace, put him on the board. He got access to the area, don't he? Not saying that this is the case. Just want to point out, man, like how all these things are starting to come together. I believe I read that Italy is also considering whether or not to join. Cardinal Parolin said, according to Avenir, the newspaper of the Italian Bishops' Conference. We too have received this invitation. The Pope has received the invitation, and we're considering what to do. We're looking into it. We're looking into it. The board, which was formally announced by the White House January 16, will serve as an oversight mechanism for the second phase of the Trump administration's comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. The Board of Peace will play an essential role in fulfilling all 20 points of the president's plan, providing strategic oversight, mobilizing international resources, and ensuring accountability as Gaza transitions from conflict to peace and development, the White House said in a statement. While joining the board is 3-year term. While joining the board will lead to a 3-year term, the New York Times reported that Trump is offering countries a permanent seat if they pay $1 billion. Wow. As of now, Norway, which has been at odds with Trump over his desire to acquire Greenland, and France have declined the invitation to join. France's snub prompted Trump to threaten levying 200% tariffs on French wine if French President Emmanuel Macron refused to join. Cardinal Parolin said the invitation to join the board requires some time to answer, and that the request will not be to participate financially because we're not in a position to do so. So check this out. If Trump is offering them, saying you got to pay $1 billion to become a part of it, well, Rome is saying we can't do it because we ain't got $1 billion, which we know they do, but they ain't paying nothing. They run the world. They ain't paying nothing, right? But listen to what it says here. Listen to what it says here. The Holy See obviously finds itself in a different situation than other countries. So there will be a different consideration, the cardinal said. Why can't he pay like everybody else? That's my question. Why he can't pay like everybody else? You know why? Because see, that's like it says here. So the Bible considers Jesus the Holy Seed, right? And here they call him the Holy See. They just take the D off, acting like he's a holy man. But look, this is the world's religious leader right here. I mean, mainly when you talk about Catholics, that's the biggest religion in the world. So he ain't got to come in and pay like everybody else. He gonna come in if he decides to, he gonna come in and I ain't gotta pay nothing. I'm gonna sit on the board and I'm gonna tell y'all what to do. And that's how it's gonna run. But I just want to point out for people to see how, you're tying board of peace together, and then the individual that's gonna come in by way of peace is considering joining this board of peace. Like it says, that the Holy See obviously finds itself in a different situation than other countries, so there will be a different consideration, the cardinal said. Tensions between U.S. and Europe. The Vatican Secretary of State also commented on tensions between the U.S. and Europe as Trump continued his push for Greenland during his speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The important thing is to respect international law, he said. The ongoing tension with Europe is unhealthy. The international situation is serious. It's important to eliminate tensions and discuss controversial issues without creating tension. Oh man, I just wanted y'all to see that right there. So let's move on a little bit further. Man. All right, let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing that. And this individual here, he is upset. You know who this is? Netanyahu. He is, somewhat, like he's a prime minister over Israel, and he refuses to get on the board. It don't matter though. He ain't got to get on the board. like France can decline getting on the board. Israel can decline getting on the board. It does not matter. The Gentiles run the world, and they do what they want to do. Just always remember that. They run the world now until the Lord return. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu refused to allow a senior Israeli official to participate in the inauguration of the new Gaza border peace, in a clear sign of his disapproval of the current direction of the peace process. So he didn't send none of his officials over there to participate in that inauguration. He's absolutely against it. Plus, he has a arrest warrant out, so he didn't go to Davos. Let's see here. So he snubbed the U.S. request for Israel's President Isaac Herzog to attend the launch ceremony of the board. So he declined that. Wouldn't let Israel's president go over to the meeting. Netanyahu himself was not present. Then it says the White House saw the launch of the border peace as a key element in implementing the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal, and one of their key action items for Trump and Davos, Axios explains. The White House wanted to have a senior Israeli official on stage with the other Arab and Muslim leaders to show that Trump's Gaza peace plan has broad support on both sides. There were reportedly tense and difficult phone calls between senior White House officials and Netanyahu and his aides as the U.S. attempted in vain to secure Herzog's participation. So anyway, he didn't want to go. He was invited to it. So, hey, he's not going to get on the board of peace. He don't want to have nothing to do with it. So, all right. So let's end that. Just wanted to show you that right there. All right. Now let's look at something, y'all. Want to show you guys something here. Now, this particular video here is mainly showing that what's going on with NATO now, with the UN. Well, I think it's NATO. Yeah, it's NATO. And, you know, with all the different stuff that was going on last week with Trump, you know, trying to take out Greenland and stuff like that, trying to purchase Greenland or trying to just go in there and bogart, you know, it caused some conflict between NATO and America. And like I said last week, America is a part of NATO. However, you can kind of start to see the infighting going on, and it's going to push Europe to go ahead and establish their own military. So notice what's being said here, because all the different pieces of the puzzle are coming together. See, you know, the Pope, he's considering becoming a part of the Board of Peace, while at the same time, NATO is possibly breaking up, and Europe, this is the European Parliament this video I'm gonna show you. This is the European Parliament, and we're gonna pay attention to the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds to show you what they're talking about. And once again, when you look in there, when you look around in the background over here, you don't see any Israelites. And I say that because we have individuals who wake up in the truth, turn to the word of God, and they go out and they cuss out people. You know, they treat people wrong and stuff like that, as if we have any power. We don't have no power right now. Our job is to get out here and preach the gospel to the world. You know, like it say, when you resist the powers, you resisting God, because Romans 13:1 let you know that the powers that be are set up by God. If we would have did our job in the first place, we wouldn't be in this mess that we in. You know, however, the world is starting to come to an end. And what we need to do is we just need to focus on preaching the gospel and setting that example, you know, as a nation of people, so we won't be in the crossfire when the Lord returns. All right, so let's look at this video here.
United States. So, colleagues, are you demanding from your governments that they speed up and make Europe stronger to defend itself? The more we all do in this room, we will ensure we help our Secretary General in his very difficult diplomatic role to defend European interests at this difficult moment. So let's arguing amongst ourselves, and more investment and action is the only way to meet our citizens' demands for more security. So now the floor, my colleague, EFA Chair David, floor is yours.
She said they need to speed up.
Thank you, dear Maria Agnes. And first of all, also from my side, a warm welcome to you, dear Secretary General Mark Rutte, to this meeting, the joint meeting of the Security and Defense Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, in association with the Delegation for Relations with the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. All colleagues, a warm welcome to you this Monday afternoon. I would just like to really thank the Secretary General for taking the time to be with us today. We're kind of starting to establish a tradition that you come on a regular basis once a year to the European Parliament's committees who are dealing with EU-NATO relations. We are greatly appreciate the opportunity to regularly exchange views with you, especially in the current geopolitical context. Dear Mark Rutte, I would like to thank you personally for your important role in diffusing the recent tensions within NATO with the United States. De-escalation is key. We here in the European Parliament across party lines know that the partnership between the EU and NATO is crucial. In this increasingly dangerous world, with this partnership is vital in order to champion and safeguard peace, freedom and prosperity. So, Europe must ensure its own defense and security now. There is indeed an immediate need for the EU and its member states to strengthen its security architecture, fully operationalize the concept of strategic autonomy and defense readiness, and to this end make collective and well-coordinated investments in the necessary defense capabilities. I'll leave it here as my introduction.
Okay, so that was his introductory, right? So did y'all hear what he said? He said we need to do it now. That's what I wanted to show you. If we'll go back to the beginning of the video and let's look at what the lady says. Look at what she says. This is what the citizens of the European Union are calling for. She's going to mention that at the very beginning.
Humiliating dispense on the United States. So, colleagues, are you demanding from your governments that they speed up and make Europe stronger to defend itself? The more we all do.
Y'all see that? They're demanding that they speed up and set up something so Europe can defend itself. See, there's been people in the word longer than I've been in, but I've been in I think about probably 18 years now. 17, 18, going on 19. I don't know. It's been a while. But the point is that just starting to hear all this chatter, man. Starting to hear all this chatter about, the EU coming together, the Pope coming, trying to get on the board of peace and all that type of stuff, and Iran and America and Russia and China and all this type of stuff. Like, it's really starting to pick up. And just wanted to make sure I point that out to you.
In this room, we will ensure we help our Secretary General in his very difficult diplomatic role to defend European interests at this difficult moment. So let's arguing amongst ourselves, and more investment and action is the only way to meet our citizens' demands for more security.
Right. So that's the only way we're going to be able to meet our citizens' demand, by more investment, less arguing. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have an economic and certain actions that they said. But in other words, we got to stop playing now. Got to stop playing. Trump made those guys upset, which is from what I saw, he did that on purpose because he wanted to get out of NATO. So enough of that. We're going to look at the word. Let's see here. All right. Okay. So I want to go to 1 Thessalonians 5. And we're going to wrap it up here. 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 1. And it says, "But of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord shall come as a thief in the night." And for those that are watching, those that are paying attention, we know that, it's going to come like a thief in the night to everybody else. That's one of the reasons, like, we preach from the Bible, is to show you what the Lord is saying, and the Lord, he gonna put it out there ahead of time. So by the time it gets to just a normal individual who ain't really paying attention as to what's going on, it's too late. Why? Because it came like a thief in the night. But for us, we watching and paying attention. So he said, "For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord shall come as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." And that's what they're going to be saying all the way down to the end. They're going to be saying it all the way down to the end, trying to get peace, and that's not going to happen. Let's go to Isaiah 33. Isaiah 33. Isaiah 33, we're going to pick this up at verse 2. It says, "O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for thee. Be thou their arm every morning, our salvation also in the time of trouble." And that's what we, even though we look at these type of things and we can kind of see what's going on, and we look at these videos and read these articles and stuff like that, still our faith is in God. Not to say that we ain't coming upon troublous time. Like the Lord even told us that in Matthew 24, he said it gonna be nothing like this before. It was nothing like this before, and it would not be anything like this afterwards. It's gonna be a bad time. But the good thing about us is that we got the word of God. We got the word of God, and it can help us still operate and function normally, still have a good time serving the Lord, spending time with our family, stuff like that. Because sometimes this stuff can drive people crazy, which it did to me some years ago, drove me crazy to the point where I was just like, Lord, you got to show me something. I don't understand. I mean, I was digging, going down the rabbit hole, digging and digging and digging. And eventually I got to the word, and the Lord started showing me the truth, and it started calming me down. So now when things happen, I look at it, kind of pay attention to it, but I don't have to fret, what I'm saying? I ain't got to go crazy. That's why the Lord talk about in the Bible that the Lord didn't give us the spirit of fear, but of a power. What did it say? Hold on, I'm gonna see here. Let me just make sure I say it right. Hold on. Yeah, 2 Timothy 1 in verse 7, he said, "For God have not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So when you got understanding on the word, look, we our fear is in the Lord. Our fear is in God, so we don't have to, fret like everybody else. But back to Isaiah. So he says, "O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for thee. Be thou their arm every morning, our salvation also in the time of trouble. At the noise of the tumult, the people fled. At the lifting up of thyself, the nations were scattered." And that's what's going to happen when the Lord return. The nations going to scatter because you got the Lord coming out of heaven with his angels coming back to bring war. The nations going to scatter when he returns. At the lifting up of thyself, the nations were scattered, and your spoils shall be gathered. Talking about the people that the Lord gonna take down these armies and stuff like that. Notice what he say. He said, "And your spoils shall be gathered like the gathering of the caterpillar, as the running to and fro of locusts shall he run upon them." That's how the Lord gonna run upon his spoil, run upon these armies, run upon these nations that are coming together trying to plot. They trying to plot to keep this Gentile dynasty going. Look, when the Lord come back, he coming to destroy it. And like it says here in verse 4, "And your spoils shall be gathered like the gathering of the caterpillar, as the running to and fro of locusts shall he run upon them. The Lord is exalted, for he dwell on high. He have filled Zion with judgment and with righteousness," because that's what's going to happen. We dealing with a guy that called the end of the world from the very beginning. So in Isaiah, Old Testament, he telling us what's going to take place. And you can bet your bottom dollar, look, Zion is going to be filled with judgment and righteousness. Why? Because Jesus is going to be back. "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy time." So even though the stuff that we going through, the stuff that we see going on, things that are starting to happen around us, like we saw earlier, the dollar going down, they preparing for war out in the, trying to strike Iran and all that type of stuff. You got ICE everywhere. ICE is now in College Park. They've been here, but people getting scared now. Look, all this stuff is preparing us for the end. I don't know what ICE gonna do, but for them to openly just be killing people like that, that's kind of strange. But at the same time, it just kind of put in my mind how when the Great Tribulation come, it's gonna be wide open against the saints. But just notice what it says. So even though we know this is coming, pay attention to what the word is saying in verse 6, Isaiah 33 and 6. It says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times." That's gonna keep us. That's gonna keep us. This why we ain't losing our mind. This why we ain't got to go crazy. This why we ain't got to be crying and so upset about it. The Bible does tell us that with much wisdom comes much sorrow. We understand that, but still, there's no peace like the word of God, though. There's no peace like the word of God. So he's saying, "Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. Behold, their valiant ones shall cry without, and the ambassadors of peace shall weep bitterly." So they can put a board of peace together. They can do all they want to. They can bring all the kings together. They can have their World Economic Forum, their Davos meeting, and all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, the Lord gonna bring down these ambassadors of peace. They're not really about peace in the first place. It's all a front. How we talking about we gonna have some peace, but yet and still they prepare for war in the Middle East? How? So that's what it says here. "Behold, their valiant ones shall cry without." The ambassadors of peace shall weep bitterly. Let's move over to Daniel chapter 8. Daniel 8, and this is coincides with, Trump inviting the man of sin, or the Pope coming out of Rome, inviting him to the board of peace. Notice what the Bible says about this individual. Daniel 8 and 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, talking about when we get down to the very end of the Gentile dynasty, in the latter end of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, because that's usually what it does. When you go back to Genesis chapter 15, the Lord told Abraham his seed was going to go into captivity, and we was going to be in captivity for 400 years, right? And we was going to come out of captivity, but how long we was going to be there? Once the iniquity of the Amorites, once it got to the point, once the iniquity of the Amorites is full, then that's when Israel was going to get delivered. Same with now. The Gentiles, getting to the point where their sin is at its end now. It's done. It's done. And this is why we starting to see the world collapse like this. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, the sin have reached, it's overflowing now. The cup is full. When the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Like it says here, a king of fierce countenance. Not that he look a certain type of way, not that he's some old scary type of man. No, but he coming. This individual is coming to take out the saints. He ain't trying to hear nothing about no Sabbath. He ain't trying to hear nothing about, you keeping the feast days and all that. He ain't trying to hear none of that. Like in Daniel 11, same book here, it says that he not going to regard the God of gods. Ain't paying that no attention. But he going to understand dark sentences. Like, for example, things in the Bible that's been hard to comprehend for years, centuries, and stuff like that. Look, he going to understand those. That's why when the Lord get back, he going straight into the lake of fire, because he know exactly what he's doing. So he said, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Then it says in 24, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully. Like he going to do it so good that the Bible calls his destruction wonderful. He going to destroy wonderfully and shall prosper in practice and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Who is the mighty and the holy people? That's Israel. These are the Israelites, the Lord's elect. Then you're going to have some people outside of Israel that's going to join hands, join along with us as well, partaking in the commonwealth of Israel. Look, they're going to be on the chopping block also. He's going to be coming for them as well. But notice what it says, shall prosper and practice and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy, all the different laws and things that they put together, through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart. Gonna pump himself up, right? Like he's just a man in his own heart and in his own mind. And notice what it says, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, like Jesus is the prince of princes. He going to be around. He going to be around when Jesus returns. Lord going to take him down like it's nothing. He shall stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. So just wanted to show you how all these different things are coming together. We pray that, you get some understanding on this, and hopefully we were able to kind of shed light on some things that are going on in the world. And feel free to go back and watch it. If you have any questions, please contact us at our email listed on the screen or the phone number listed on the screen. Other than that, thank you all, and you have a great evening.